Where Am I is one of my favorite title fight songs, and I wanted to talk about one interesting songwriting philosophy that this song perfectly demonstrates that makes it so much cooler. For gear, I'm using my Reverend Double Agent OG into my Fender Blues Junior Mark III, and I've got a Boss Blues Driver Wazacraft and a JHS Angry Charlie here. So the first part goes like this. So the first part of this riff is just a C5 and an E5, plain and simple. But one little thing that Jamie's doing here is that he's adding the lower fifth on the E string. So instead of just doing, you know, the C and the G, like this, he's adding the G also on the E string. And that just creates the perception of heaviness. There's more oomph to that chord, right? So instead of like the... It's fat. I mean, that G is just much more, you know, powerful and present than the actual root. It's darker, and it's really nice. You see this in a lot of title fight songs. I've always called these Weezer chords because this is something I normally associate with Weezer. But then another little thing that we're doing here is we've got a lot of little moving bits to get between those two chords. Because again, the kind of melodic core of this section is just a C into a E, but you're moving around in really interesting ways. So again, after you get to that E, you're really just strumming it the once before you do this little like almost walk down into the new C, the C7. And again, I get just choosing to do like that little power chord walk down on the D string. A little more unique. I mean, he could have just done a lead line, you know, something like, and that was, you know, pretty cool. But again, the choice to make it into the rhythm and to make it a power chord, to give it a little more meat, to make sure the rhythm section still felt full, as opposed to just adding a layer of a lead part, like, it's like, nope, that's not what we're doing. We're doing this. So it's kind of imbuing the rhythm section with a little lead walk down without sacrificing like the meatiness of what a rhythm guitar needs to offer. Little things like that I love title fight for. Another little thing that we're doing a lot here is just strumming open strings, right? So on the... Right, we're doing an open strum there before we get into our little... And even after that, he's doing a... He's striking it again twice. You could have easily just choked the strings, right? And it would have given a cool percussive quality, right? But again, by actually hitting the strings, you're still maintaining that beefy rhythm part that we really want, that we really expect out of a rhythm guitar. Love it. The other thing is that it helps coordinate the interesting timings that Jamie's kind of playing here. Because when he goes into this new chord, which again, it's a return to the C, but instead of just the C5 from before, we're actually doing a C7. Completely different harmonic quality, right? Not nearly as heavy, a little lighter, a little brighter. And I love that. Again, and that's kind of the philosophy that I want to talk about. It's choosing to use the same chords, but different voicings at different points for different effects, right? It's a lot different than... It's the same chords, but because of the voicing, it feels like it's 4 chords when it's 2. The other little thing specifically with that section is that it seems to kind of come in like a beat earlier, right? Like it's not... Right? He kind of leads it. So it's... It's a little more sudden, it catches you off guard. Right? So it's not... We're not just doing our 4 chords here on beat. No, we're really messing with the timing of things to make sure you're actively engaged. I mean, it's beautiful. He does it... Jamie does this, again, across their, you know, discography, and it's just beautiful. But again, and then the choice, the C7, classic emo sound. You love it. You hear it everywhere. But then he's doing almost like a like a Smashing Pumpkins bit here. He does like a little walk down where he starts from the C7. And then he almost wants to do the open chord thing again, where he just strums all the open strings, but he actually leaves his pinky, or I don't know what finger he's using, but he leaves the fucking, the B, the high B, on the G string there, for the walk down, so it's... And then we're back down in this super dark, like, suspended sound, right? Like this one, like an E sus4 kind of vibe, right? And then we're walking back up again. Could have done a walk up with a little lead line and just had the rhythm guitars doing whatever, but no, we're integrating a kind of melodic lead into the rhythm playing, so we get this walk up where it's but again, like, it's the E sus into that A sus sound again, just kind of like really open, ambiguous, dark, tense, and then it just resolves back into a plain Jane simple C5 and repeats. Beautiful. But again, so that's kind of the core philosophy that I wanted to highlight. It's, you can have a really simple rhythm section in terms of what chords you're playing. You can just play your C and your E, but you don't have to just repeat the same two chords over and over again. You can change the voicings to create different effects and create the sensation or the perception that there's more happening than what you're actually doing. And as a matter of fact, there is more happening than what Jamie's doing. And this actually extends beyond just the verse, because the chorus, of course, is... Could you guess what two chords those are? Yes, it is in fact a C and an E. This time, again, like, the chord's different. It's not, well, it's not different, because really it is a C7, but instead of the third, he uses the fifth, which is cool because that is a much more, that's less defined, it's less clear, it's a little more ambiguous, right? I mean, you hear this, it's not near, like, the harmonic quality is not nearly as well defined as when you play this. This is a very clearly major sound because of that third. But this one doesn't have the third's omitted. Obviously, it's implied in the context of the song, but again, it's a little more open-ended, which gives the chorus a completely different vibe. And in fact, he's actually adding in another technique that he started earlier in the song. He's adding the lower fifth as well on the E string, right? So when you mix it all together, I mean, that's not only like a dark chord in the same way like the C5 was. So, sorry, dark in the sense of like heavy, but now it's also kind of like tense and ambiguous. Genius, right? And then he goes into what I think is like an E sus. Again, this one's really, really tense. It doesn't even feel like it gets resolved properly in this chorus. The resolution feels like when it comes back into the... Right? It really feels like it's that second E that really brings it all back together. But anyways, that's my rambling, my unstructured, slightly buzzed thoughts on what I would consider one of my favorite title fight songs, and some of the cool songwriting decisions that are being made that make this song so spectacular. Again, it's all about, you can use the same chords over and over again, but change the voicing, because little changes in the voicing have really big effects on the listener, right? Again, adding a lower fifth creates a perception of something heavy. Throwing in a suspended version of like the E, right? Kind of creates that feeling of unease. But you can also have something like bright and brittle, like just like a C7, as opposed to like the C5. These are the same chords. These are all C, like some permutation of like a C7, essentially. But they're doing very different things in the viewer's ears. Right? And the other little thing that I mentioned is, again, just like, I didn't maybe discuss it in much length because it wasn't really the focus of the video, but you can work a little lead section into your rhythm without compromising like the beefiness of the rhythm, right? Again, like, instead of a... How about make it a power chord, throw it in there, right? Just because you're playing rhythm doesn't mean you need to be just like slamming away at some basic chords. Like, no, you can change it up. And the other thing you should change up is the rhythm. Again, like in the second half of the section. Coming in a little early with that C7. Beautiful. My name is Doofy, and I might just upload this, and that's the last you ever hear of me. But I just wanted to yap about this, and maybe I'll yap about other things in the future.